Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening. Welcome to the 45th episode of The Divine Mess. And today we have a special guest with us on our virtual couch, like we have been having for the past few weeks. And we have been learning about their ways, their unique ways of serving others. We have been sharing our ways for, I think, at least 35 episodes. And then we decided to just invite others um, to share their own ways. So, by the way, if it's the first time listening, I'm Kirtideva Perman. I'm the cosmic guide at the Hero's Mystic, where we help you on the hero's journey to slay your inner demons and find your inner hero. And also, like every week, I'm joined by my co host. She's the intuitive and self love.
Yeah.
Self love, is it correct?
Oh, just love in
She doesn't.
general. It's just
She
love.
doesn't. She doesn't love the labeling, right? And so,
No, no, we help to dispel the myths of labels and kind of rip those things right off you and redefine.
but
Um,
I must say, like, she's a resilient mom of four boys, and she loves to talk about them and share
oh,
her experiences about
yeah,
them.
teenagers,
And
life is good.
but like every week, we had fun conversations. So we often speak from the space of the divine masculine and divine feminine. And today, our guest, she's uh, Brianna. She's a sound ceremonialist. I have been practicing to say that before, I say. She's a Reiki practitioner and holistic self care coach. A few years ago, Brianna found herself spending more time in bed with a chronic stress related condition rather than living life through sound, Reiki, and lots in capital, I would say, of self care. She has learned how to listen to her stresses and help others find ease in capital again. She loved the capital in everyday chaos. She also believed that self care, again, is self, a capital S, just letting you know, is a lifestyle, not a luxury. As a recovering corporate burnout seeker, she changed her life and relationship by rediscovering her voice, finding joy and learning to nurture all parts of her through self care practices. And today, she helps women avoid mental exhaustion and burnout, to love yourself through spirit, mind, body, and celebrate this crazy world with more joy, ease, and grace than you imagined possible. Welcome, Brianna. I hope I made you justice by this little bio. And if you can share more about your story, because we are really keen to know more about like your story in terms, if you can expand more about the chronic stress related condition, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm super excited. Um, and and I love the Cliff Notes version of that. So I will start in 2017, around 2017. I was in college, so I was full time school and also working like three jobs in childcare. So my attention was taking care of lots of things that were not me. At the time, I was also going through therapy. I was on antidepressants, but wasn't really taking time for myself. And until it kind of all caught up with me at the same time. And um, when I got off my antidepressants, it started with just a headache. And that headache I would ignore because I was working with kids, like they came first. And I did that for long enough. I think it was about 2 or 3 years where I had my first episode where my eyes started rolling in the back of my head and my entire body tensed up. Like I was scared that I was having a stroke or something and I was paralyzed on the entire left side of my body. Couldn't move, couldn't scream for help. My jaw was locked shut. It was terrifying. And so that was pretty much the impetus for I guess thinking that I was crazy. Couldn't figure out what was going on. My neurologist, I like sent him a video and I'm like, there's something wrong. He's like, no, you're fine. um, and then years of MRIs and going to the doctors, got an EKG, EEG, the brain one. And the doctor looked at me and he's like, "You're crazy." Not really, but he was like, "Everything that you're experiencing is in your mind and it's stress related." So then I got back into therapy, also during the time of having a really rough relationship that I was in. And so it was just a culmination of a lot of things. And then the universal shift of 2020 happened. And I think that was for me a year to really dive into what was going on with me, because I didn't really have much else to do. But I noticed, having known what that stress was, when it was time to slow down. I realize now that it was my body's way of allowing me to slow down. And so through that, and then 2020, I met my business coach. He started talking to me about stillness. And he's like, just go sit. No music, no phones, no journals. Like, you can't do anything except sit. Try it for 5 minutes, try it for 60 minutes. And that was like really big for me, because I'm like, oh, I'm just going to observe my life. Um, and it was so challenging, because I realized how many thoughts were running through my head, how much I wanted to jump out of an experience, how much just noise I was experiencing all around me, and how that relates to the stress that we feel, the way that we respond or react in certain situations. And that was really my first look into self-care, as a everyday practice. So it was stillness first, and then came breath work. And the two of those combined were really pivotal. I saw how it released my body of a lot, how I learned a lot about my body, the way that it communicated with me. um, Especially in breath work, my left side would always clutch. And when I think about my left side, I think about control. And so whenever I'm holding on to or not letting things flow the way that they need to, it shows up when I do my breathwork practice as cramping, specifically on my left side. So that was that. And then after the dissolution of this relationship that um, I had lots of time by myself, just with me and my dog. And I realized that I wanted to start singing again, and I wanted to start dancing again. So it was this beautiful unfolding that started with self care, that started with stillness, and then ended up bringing me back to sound. I had a few friends who were in the embodiment space, and they were playing around with crystal bowls, and I got mine just to open my voice and see what happens. And it was a sound that I've never heard before, and it was so beautiful, and it was rich. It wasn't just like in my throat and very airy and princessy. Like, I got to play with control and power and all of these dynamics. And so now I take that and I help other women. I help women in transition who are maybe coming out of um, a relationship that didn't serve them, or in a space at work, or just in their own minds, where they're listening to everybody's noise, and then using sound to bring them back into the person that they are, um, so that they can hear their body's language, so that they can tap into that. That was a really long answer.
It's never too long. Like, that's beautiful, like what you shared, like, and that's really deep and profound. There's a lot of, like, insight for me. I'm just curious, like, looking back at the first part of your journey, like when you said, like, when your coach told you to sit and be, like, how was it your first minute or first 60 seconds?
Oh, the first 60 seconds is so funny. And I think it really relates to the way a lot of people start meditating, where you sit down and you're like, okay, just focus on your breath. Focus on your breath. Oh, you're not breathing. You're thinking about all the things. Think about the breath. Focus on the breath, and just like training your mind or I'm like sitting there and I was like, okay, I have to remember everything because after this, I'm going to write a social media post about it. And I'm going to, the way that life has conditioned us into technology. But yeah, so that was it. It was just me talking to myself. I'm like, okay, focus on your breath. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Oh, there's a bird. Oh, my phone's not over there. Did I set a timer? My timer will go off when I did. So it was really just about observing the amount of thoughts that were in my head. Um, and I think it took about 15, 20 minutes just to let the thoughts come and to just be with it. Being that I had experienced breath work, I was a dancer, like, and an introvert for all means, like silence was not scary for me. Like looking at my thoughts, I do that all the time. um, but I think it was really profound for me to be able to look at it without judgment, and that was the part that was the most exciting in that, and just allowing the downloads because they come as thoughts too. Um, so allowing the downloads to just rush through me and let them be in that moment, and anything that I didn't remember by the time I got back to my apartment, it just wasn't meant to be, and I held on to the parts that I could.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting when you've been, obviously talking over the last little while about women who negate themselves in favor of their work, their partners, their children, life in general. And did you find that difficult, like in terms of trying to separate, putting yourself in position number one, like in pole position versus, in position 56, like right up the back of the stadium, instead of being that I come first, because if I don't come first, then I cannot serve anybody else. I think that's the biggest challenge that most of us, guys too, I don't think it's an exclusive thing for women, but did it take some time for you to be able to edge yourself closer to being number one?
I feel like I was in a fortunate position. So after my separation, I had the house to myself. So it was me taking care of me and me taking care of my dog. Those were my only two priorities. Like I had to put food on the table and feed my dog and pay his vet bills. And I will say there were times, like I don't want anyone listening to this to think that I have it all figured out by any means, but it was it was perfect for me because I was allowed the space that I had not given myself in a caregiving role for so long. Um, to be able to do that, to have that space, to have that time and be like, oh, I get to focus on me. But I will say that there were little changes that I made based on how much I knew myself. So, first and foremost was the way that I ate. So, I started with just changing the foods that I was eating that were within my budget. And then after that, it was, I mean, I guess kind of forced because I had to take my dog out. We lived on a second floor apartment. I had a 100-pound dog. So daily walks 3 times a day were a thing, rain or shine. So I was walking and I was eating and I was just enjoying life. I was enjoying cooking. But I think for those who may have more on their plate than I did, because I know that starting out as a coach, to be able to go to women who had children who had these responsibilities, like I was like, who was I to say that I can teach you a framework for self-care where you can put you first when you have children, when you have dogs, when you have husband, and all these things. um, So I think it's that's why I love the little things. It doesn't have to be big. It can be nutrition. It could be waking up 5 minutes earlier than normal just to have a cup of coffee in silence, stuff like that.
Yep.
So that was the beginning of it. Was was just taking those simple steps and then realizing that I was giving myself compassion to know that I was in a very different situation than a lot of the women that I coach, seeing it from their space and then being able to tailor my framework around that with the 2-minute habits.
Yeah, I know that when I had left my relationship, for me, it was about lighting a candle at the end of every day and giving thanks for having a quiet space to walk into, that I didn't have to be battle ready, that I didn't have to have my sword and my shield ready to go because there was going to be somebody combative on the inside of the home. And then to be able to, like you say, I got to change the types of foods that I ate. I cooked more vegetarian food, because that's what I desired to do. I didn't have to make another plate of spaghetti bolognese ever in my life. Ever, 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 ever. I could try lots of new things on, but to see how they fit. And I think that, like you say, when you're in a relationship, you alter and change your habits for whatever reason it is, to suit the other person. Like you almost mold yourself into a space where you're almost a carbon copy of them, because it seems at the time to be easier to just kind of slip into those habits. But how do you then, with your clients, introduce the sound and Reiki and getting them to find their voices? Because I know with a lot of women that I've worked with or I've spoken to, articulating themselves well when they're in a kind of a confrontational or a highly stressed space, whether it's a boss in your face or whether it's a partner or children, being able to utilize your voice very well sometimes is quite hard, and finding that process in which you can find your voice. How do you help them step through that?
I ask a lot of questions. I feel like that's a very coaching answer. No, so I never my main modalities are sound and Reiki,
Yeah.
but I never push from that starting point. Um, so I know for for me and for the people that I work with, a lot of what has to happen first is a dissolution of identities. Um, so for me personally, it was dissolving the identity of wife. What does it mean to be a wife? What, like, who is Brianna without all of the I am in, like, the labels? Like, who is Brianna at her core, to then be able to determine what that wanted to look like. So for me, it was once I get people to, this is who I want to be. This is what I realize that I'm doing. This is how it's no longer serving me. I always start with sound in the form of self talk. So I will do an audit with my clients, with my friends, and I'll just listen to them. And I'm like, hey, did you realize that you were saying this? Like, you're saying I need to. And I'm like, says who? Like, just the awareness of where the noise is coming into their life from all the other people, just to bring awareness. So awareness, self-talk, sound, the ways that we're vibrating through our own voice, right? Because we are water and we hold memory, and the things that we say in the 72% of us is largely tied to how we feel. Um, so that's where I start. I always start with self-awareness. It's just like little things. Like, hey, did you realize you said should like 57 times? So now I have this thing where people are like, I should do that. And I'm like, should is shame language. I'm like, we can unsubscribe from that.
Oh, wind that one back. Just should is shame language. That's the golden nugget for today, Dava. I'm sorry, but that is just priceless, because it's conversations that I have with in similar language. Have to, should, must, all of those words. It's like, where's I desire to, where's I would really like to, or I love to do that. Not the I must, I have to, I need to. It just builds tension in the body when all of those things come up, like, I really should ring my mother, or I really should speak to my sister, or those things. And then you go, no, I don't want to be battle ready to have to go and talk to those people. It just doesn't make you feel good. So it's interesting languaging, isn't it? Like when you start to, for people to start to see the habit in which they have formed about certain people or certain activities in their life that they feel that they must do.
Yeah. I had a colleague that I was working with when I was doing email and copywriting, and she kind of made a play on words with the way that we feel with shame language, and she was like, "Why are you shitting all over yourself?" And it is that. It's like that poopy feeling that we just put on ourselves to just do all the things that we don't want to do, that we feel are expectations of other people that we're taking on as our own. Like, it doesn't, you, if you do not like glitter headbands, you do not have to wear them. I'm a big glitter person, and I know a lot of people aren't. So I'm just gonna put that glitter out there. But if you
I have a glitter handbag, so it's all good. We speak the same language. It's fine.
but yeah.
So you've got you were saying to us before we started recording that you've got an upcoming course. Is it an online course that people can
Yes.
learn about what you do?
It is. So I have been in this very beautiful space. I want to say for the past, it was before I moved to Virginia. So it was like 2021, 2022. When I had really started like developing my intuition, when I had really started listening and meditating deeper and really deciding like what was my purpose? Like, why am I here and why is all this happening to me, or happening for me? Like, what are all these opportunities a culmination of? And I got this really beautiful message that I, as a voice, get to be an echo for the women who are finding theirs until they can find their own voice, until they can listen to that intuition. Um, so I'm that was it. And then just recently, more and more of that started coming in. People asking me, how do I use sound? Like, I have all these tools. Like, how do I use sound? So I came up with this idea called Sonosoma, which is basically a resonant body. And it ties in how to use sound through sound tools, sound um, through your own voice, through singing, through toning, to help regulate the system, to find more joy, to find more ease, to help your plants grow. Like, whatever it is, I use sound with my plants. So I, I'll go on that later. That's a tangent. So I created this membership that launches as of recording this on February 23rd. So it's coming up in a few days, and it's really a place where people can go to use sound for self care. They can learn how to use the tools that they already have, or if they're interested in learning more about different tools, like if you want to learn about drums, if you want to learn about crystal bowls and how they work, not in like a facilitator sound healing course, but more so just for personal practices. That's what the Sonosoma membership is, and I'm super excited to launch that. So that'll be my baby. That's my educational side of sound. Super excited.
They say something about what was I listening to? Gary Brecker or one of those were talking about humming and what humming can do for the vagus nerve, like in terms of being able to regulate the system. So now I walk around the house and I do it all the time. Every time I'm feeling a little bit stressed with kids or just life in general. So instead of having the music on, that's what I do. I just hum to myself. I'm sure my kids think I'm a bit crazy. But it's almost like giving yourself a hug. It's very self-soothing, I find. But I love music. I would have music on all day, every day. I don't listen to commercial radio. I don't watch commercial TV. I prefer to have music on. But that's for me. But how about you, Dee? Do you listen to music all the time?
Not all the time, but in my culture we do have mantras that we repeat, but there's this sound. You must learn how to pronounce it as well. So I think it plays on the frequency or the vibrational level that uh, it's not like the gods won't hear you. They will, but it's just how it's put out in the universe, I feel, and how when you're saying it and how connected and I think it links to back to the humming as well, and what Brianna was saying about the sonosoma, right? About it, and I find your practice really interesting, like how you use sound, like in terms of your healing. But how did you, for you, like discover this skill or talent? Like just using sound. How were you attracted to that for you?
So I was in um I mean, I've always been a singer, performer. I did chorus in high school. So singing was always very much so a release for me because I did not scream. I think 10 years old was the last time that I, like on a roller coaster, could scream. Um, so I ingrained this story that I can't scream, but I can sing. So for me, singing was very therapeutic in that aspect. And then I was in I was in circles in the somatic world, and I had a friend who started using crystal bowls along with her practice because she and I had very parallel journeys. I noticed, so I would get a download, and then I would see her do it. Not that I wanted to copy her, but I saw a mirroring of my experiences in her experience as well. And I mean, we only lived like an hour away from each other on different sides of the Washington Puget Sound. So, I was like, you know what? Sound is a spot, or singing. Like my voice has always been very light, very airy. Like I would love to just explore that side of myself. Um, so that's how it started. Like I just got one of those little Himalayan Tibetan, the brass bowls, the little 6-inch ones that are like $15 on Amazon. Um, and I started with that, and I would just match the tone. That's all I would do, because at that point I wasn't an echo. I was just like a mockingjay. Like I was just repeating other people's sound until I came into the identity of what my sound could be. So that was it, and then I started there, and then I got more excited about it. Like I loved the richness of the sound. I loved to have it, to meditate, just to sit and play with a bowl and just to hear it. And then that turned into like meditative music. Like I would put on the 10 plus hour long 333 develop wealth and all those type of soundtracks that you get on YouTube. And I would literally clean my house to it. Like 4 or 5, 6 hours of just the same music. Um, but I did that and I started, and then I got my first set of crystal bowls, and I was like, hey, I went to a few of my friends and I was like, can I play these for you? And the stories that came out of it, like the realizations that they had, um, like the visions and just the amount of relief and awareness that they were coming to where they were in their journey was what really started this for me. Because, like, to have someone say, this is the first time that I saw myself alone, and I was okay with that. I was okay with being by myself. Like, stuff that I get, oh, I got goosebumps. But stuff like that was really pivotal, and then I just wanted to dive more into it. I wanted to know how sound actually worked with the body. um I just, yeah, I'm a nerd in that way. Like, I love science. So, and physics, I love science, I love physics, so sound is a great way to do that. um and then incorporating the movement energetic part of the vibration. So I think that answered your question. Yes. Okay.
Did. And I feel that my dad, who was a physics high school teacher, would love that part. And for you to explain about the physics of it, but I'm sure the audience won't like it much. Like, we don't need like a physics explanation about the sound, but like that's beautiful. Like your journey of how you discovered your voice, like how you become okay with who you are. And I feel that's really important because a lot of people, like we were talking about before, was we look on the external. We tend to look on the external rather than taking time to spend with ourselves and listen to the sound within us, right? And do you find this with women a lot, like the women that you work with? Because I know you do have like you say like identify your three P's that you talk about. In so if that's something you can share a bit more about.
Yeah. So with women, so the three P's is part of my self-care framework. There's two parts of it. There's three P's, which are my three pillars, and then there's the E's framework, which is the habit forming process of it. Um, but to answer the first part of your question, a lot of the conversation that I have with women is that when you are in a situation for a very long time where you are negated of your experiences, um, you lose a sense of ability to understand what is noise and what is yours. And to hold and suppress all of that for a very, very long time is like putting a bottle under pressure. Um, so when you have a bottle that's under pressure, and then all of a sudden somebody comes in and we're like, we're gonna shake it up and feel all the emotions. That's a lot to feel, especially for your first time. Um, so first and foremost, the thing that I hear a lot is if I start crying, if I let all of these feelings out, I may never stop. So there's a trust factor that has to be built in first, right? And this is where um, feeling experiences, this is where having support around it is really pivotal. Um, but I think the first step is to trust and know that you are going to be safe in your experiences. And once you have that trust in your experiences, that you know and can tap into what you do like and what you don't like, then you get to play, right? And that's where playing in this idea of self care with ease is really, really fun. So, for the three P's, or the three pillars of self care, as I like to talk about them, the first set of pillars is all of your practices, like your individual practices, right? Um, And so while you're on this journey, if stillness is a big one for you, like sitting long enough to feel the things is good for you, then that works. It could be, I don't know, making a cup of tea was was a morning meditation process for me. So that, or taking a walk, like whatever feels really, really good in your soul or in your body, depending on how intimate you are with your feelings and your body's awareness. Finding that first practice to allow you to regulate your nervous system, regulate your day, or whatever minute you're in for that day, just bringing you back to presence, bringing you back in. That's what the practices is. Self tools that you can use on yourself when everything goes up in flames, or it feels like it. And so, with that, if you have your self practices and they're not working, then that's what I would call phase two, or the second pillar. That's when we go to our second pillar. And that one is all about the socials. That's the places and the people that you can go to. So like hanging out with your girlfriends, or if it's if it's a really good relationship, calling your mom. Or for me specifically, and this is why I put places in there, my dance studio was a really good one. So dance by itself would be a practice. Going to a studio and being around people, like the energy, the collective energy of a community of people, um, would be a place. So that would be my phase two. Like if taking a walk didn't work and I'm like, I need to let off some energy, I'm going to go to my dance studio. That would be phase two, or pillar two. And then the third one, so if I have done number one and number one's not working, if I've done number two, I've gone to places, I've hung out with my girlfriends, like I've gone into the circles that I know I can get things done, and it's not working, right? If I'm not being served the way that I need and supported in the way that I need, then the third one, I used to call this practitioners, but I changed it to professionals. So these are the people who are certified, who have that free 30,000-foot view, like bird's eye view, to be able to look in and see something. So a very tangible example, a few months ago, I was going through a lot of transition. I was moving. I was coming into a new studio for my business. I was moving out of my apartment. I was traveling, doing retreats. Like a lot was happening all within the course of a few weeks. And none of my practices were working. My meditation wasn't working. My breath work wasn't working. Going out and sticking my feet in the grass wasn't working. Like my practices weren't working. And I was hanging out with my girlfriends. I was getting really frustrated, just like in and out of that energy. And I'm like, this isn't working either. Talking to people makes me irritable. Not being around people makes me irritable. Like, I don't know what's going on and I can't figure out why. And then I went to my acupuncturist and she was like, okay, okay. And she listened for all of the things. And then she was like, hey, so all of the symptoms that you're describing together as a cluster sound like something may be going on with your thyroid. And here's what I suggest. And just that little bit of information, plus the realignment of energy with the acupuncture, was really, really profound. And it allowed me to then go change my practices and focus more on my nutrition, to create more awareness around what I was eating, what I wasn't eating, when I was eating certain things, to be more intuitive with what my body was needing during the different phases of my cycle. So that's a really tangible example of how the three P's work. And I will say, caveat to the places and the people are not everybody. Like that is not reserved for everybody. These are people who, one, hold you to your standards and not your stories, first and foremost. So these aren't the people who are like, oh my gosh, it's okay, you'll figure out a way. These are the people who are like, you are on a mission, and you're going to do this, and you know that you're fabulous, but you're talking to yourself like crap. So we're going to unsubscribe from that and then come back to me once you get back on track. Like, those are the people that you want. The people who are going to tough love, who see you for where you're going, where you said you're going, because help is only help if it's asked for. And then having those people who are serving you of your highest and best. If they don't do that, if they drain your energy, if they make you feel some type of way in your body that is not fantastic, then we are not going to those people. They can stay in your aroundness. They can be in that outer electron cloud, if you will, but they are not your nucleus. So just wanted to put that caveat in there for anybody who's like, who are my people? And I do have this in a workbook if anybody wants, and I can give that to you in the link so that people can access it as well.
It's all a bit of a good timely reminder, I think, in terms of, understanding that self-care practices aren't necessarily a bubble bath and a glass of wine, because sometimes some of those things that we think are practices are actually crutches for not dealing with the shiz that we've got going on in our lives. And that maybe, like you say, when things have stopped working, it's a bit like when you work out and you get to a plateau and your body's not changing or you're not losing weight. You need to change things up. So, perhaps, like you say, it's the people in your circle that are not being as supportive as they could, or, maybe you are the smartest person in the room, so it means that you need to go and find a new room in which to be in that you can go and learn and grow from. But I do like how you've stepped, try and honor yourself first, and then if the self-talk is not where it should be, then to go to these other people and places to remind you, like you say, of your brilliance and the mission that you have, that you want to fulfill. And then obviously go and find some professionals, whether it be a therapist or whether it be, a spiritual practitioner or whoever it is that you've chosen to assist you on your journey. It might be your chiropractor or your physio or your personal trainer or somebody to then go and say, well, come on, let's do something about it. But sometimes it just requires an injection of energy from somebody else, or a golden nugget, like you've dropped a few of those absolute pearlers today. So I've been madly scratching on my piece of paper while you've been having a chat with us today. And they're the things that we love to give our listeners, are those practical, easy to implement, or just the good solid reminders, because we're all on the journey, and irrespective of where you are on it, sometimes we need those taps up the backside of the head to go, oh, that's right, I forgot about that one, or I forgot to do that one, or, well, that's a good one, I reckon I've got time to add that one in, or it's one I haven't tried. I tried ice bathing yesterday. It's something I've not done before, and that was like, oh my word, that is an experience all in itself. So sometimes you just got to change it up, and being surrounded by women or men, or, a community of people. And sometimes when you come together with people that you don't know and you find these common elements or common threads in your story, it really fills your cup up. It gives you enough to be able to go back to your muggle existence and go on and do the things that you need to do so that your human can have shelter and food on the table and all of those sorts of things. So then that you do have that bit of space to go off and serve the goddess and do the spiritual work that some of us, not all of us, but some of us feel called to then go off and do. So Thank you for the timely reminders for me today about honouring myself before I go off and serve my children and my partner and my clients, and just to take a breath. I think that's really so important, than to sit in stillness. We very often do not do that. Did you get any good reminders today, Dee?
For me, it's because you keep mentioning, I think twice or thrice you mentioned unsubscribe. So for me, I was like thinking in terms of in your life, just look whom are you following. You know, like we tend to follow on social media. So it's like unsubscribe to that language, to that self-talk, to those people, to those practices that are not serving you. And also it's like uns unscribing. Oh, I couldn't say it. to the to also like your, you know, like those negative habits. Unfollow the rituals that are not serving you. And we have been talking about community in our past few episodes about look around, look with whom you're hanging. Are they elevating you, or are they draining you? And I feel that Brianna has put it in her own way, in her own magic. And my I would like ask her if she has any last piece of wisdom to share with us today. And I was like, would I dare to ask her to play sound for us?
Oh, to play sound?
Just say healing, if whatever comes to you, if that's okay. Because you mentioned about playing sound to your plants, which I'm really curious to know how you do that. So if you are able to, I know I
um,
put you on the spot.
no, you're so good. I have a few right here. Um, but these are my chimes, and I love just the sound that comes in. So taking a deep breath, breathing that in. Um, and I just want to remind everyone, I guess my last nugget is the same thing that I say at the end of all of my podcasts, which is if you feel stuck, move. If you can't think, breathe. And if your world's crumbling, feel it all. Everything you need is right under your nose.
I don't think we can follow that.
I think we
That's brilliant.
can. That is so good. That is so
Thank you
good.
so much.
So good. And I guess our normal wrap up at the end, my friend. We love you all. Thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us today, whether this be your first episode or your 45th. And we look forward to having you all with us on the next adventure and our next guest on our virtual couch. And until then, be kind to yourself and be kind to others, because it's just simpler. Live with some ease and grace, as Brianna says, because life flows so much more beautifully when we do. So until then, we will wish you lots of love and lots of joy and lots of fun. So go out and find it.
Well, thank you, Brianna, for coming on. We really appreciate the time that we spent together. It's a reminder to find our voice and also to listen to the sound within us and dance to the music within us as well. So put on the music loud today and just dance it out. So thank you. Thank you, Brianna. You're most welcome to come back again and talk more about your membership
1000%.
and to share even like the sound, like go for it. If you're keen to
Yes.
share, please, we are up for it.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody. And thank you, Brianna.
Thank you.